Namaste everyone and welcome to a discussion on the topic of something we don't want, don't like, wish that does not happen, but somehow at the back of the mind we consider it inevitable. That is war. Why do we fight? Why there isn't peace despite the fact that everyone wants peace? So let us welcome this discussion to open our eyes, and the series of these videos, Great Minds, Great Quotes, I hope has made certain impact on all of you and any others that may ever see this. So the first quotation is by Marcus Cicero. I prefer the most unjust peace to the most righteous war. Now we have seen throughout history, much has been written about it, justifying war. The war was to transform a society from evil to good. War was necessary to avoid torturous rulers. War was to establish peace. All that. So we are familiar with that part, that we have been justifying war. Even in today's world, there are many people who justify war because it is for the good. But Cicero has a different point of view. We may not agree, but we must know about it. We must pay attention. I prefer the most unjust peace to the most righteous war. Why he doesn't like war, even if it is the most righteous? Because war is destruction. War is violence in which both the winner and the loser suffer and lose. So there is actually in today's world in particular, a war means destruction all around. Even the winners will be partly or fully destroyed in addition to the losers. So let's be aware of that there is no justification for war, more so in today's world of mass destruction. Historically, there may have been some justification, we are still studying that. But he prefers the most unjust peace. Most unjust peace, which is not fair to some people, but at least there is no destruction, there is no violence. If there is a peaceful society, even if there is some injustice, there is a potential for improving that situation, to bring back and establish justice or rule of law, whatever you call it. So I prefer the most unjust peace to the most righteous war. We must appreciate the sentiment. Whether we agree or disagree is another matter. This quotation by Mahatma Gandhi brings to fore a very interesting topic that we have generally ignored about the nature and inspiration of women compared to men. Women represent the right side of the brain, which is more tranquil, connected to nature, has more empathy, more love, more subtlety, and more longer-term vision, more giving, more serving. All these qualities are right brain activities, which is called the feminine brain. Left brain, the masculine side of our brain, is denoted by more aggression, more logic, more calculation, more risk-taking, more disconnect with nature, and more selfishness and self-interest. So, in this quotation, he is emphasizing the significance of women in our society and in our future. If only women will forget that they belong to the weaker sex. So there is no weaker or stronger, nothing like that. There is just a differential between the two. If only women will forget that they belong to the weaker sex, I have no doubt that what they can do is infinitely more than men against war. So the message is clear. The distinction, no matter how subtle, between male and female, we talk about equality. We try to equalize unequal entities. Good luck. So if we understand this difference between the nature of men and women, and if women are in power and they don't consider themselves to be the weaker sex, which they have been taught all their life, that you are weak, you have less power, less strength, less of everything, and therefore you must either serve, obey, or at most try to be equal to men, which is an impossible effort, impossible task. If only women will forget that they belong to the weaker sex, I have no doubt that they can infinitely be more than men against war. So let's consider this message, understand this, and maybe abide by it and encourage women to be in positions with power. And we might see a world more peaceful, more empathetic, and more preserving of our future and environment. This quotation by Rachel Carson brings our attention to an impending destruction of civilization. That is connection with nature. Man is part of nature. Here man means man, women, children, everyone, all humanity. Humanity is part of nature, and his war against nature is inevitably a war against himself. So what is war against nature? This whole concept of conquering nature, regulating nature, modifying nature in the name of improving our control over nature, and utilizing, maximizing the consumption of resources through energy inefficient means, which means we are burning nature, we are burning forests, we are extracting resources, fuels underground, making hollow space inside the earth and burning it, burning the fume in the air. And not only that, other things, the wastage that we spread on land pollution, water pollution, air pollution, all that. We are damaging the protective layers, atmospheric layers of the earth all around. And we think we have advanced civilization, we are more adept in technology, intelligence, all that. This is self-pride, self-sustaining, self-supporting self-originating pride, which may be a total misunderstanding of nature and the survival of humanity. So man is part of nature, and his war against nature is inevitably a war against himself. So let us not be at war with ourselves. Let us be out of that mentality, move toward peace and love for nature. Albert Einstein is presenting a paragraph in few words that we all need to pay attention to, understand it, and incorporate in our minds. Striving for peace, as we all tend to do, striving for peace and preparing for war are incompatible with each other. Why aren't we preparing for peace instead of preparing for war and thinking of peace? Let's stop thinking of war, prepare for peace, and accomplish our goals in establishing a more advanced, prosperous, and sustainable society and civilization of the future. So it is a matter of our existence. Let's not ignore it. Take it seriously. This is a traditional proverb, very short but very instructive. The war that will end all war. What that could be. The war that will end all war will not be fought with guns. So the war that will end all war, which means it is not actually war, because your goal is to end all war. And we sometimes think ignorantly that by fighting a war with weapons, we will win. If we want to win the war against war, which means two negatives make one positive, which means we are striving for peace. So striving for peace is similar to waging a war against war. But that war has to be fought or handled with love, affection, curiosity, giving, sharing, preserving. Those are the so-called weapons for war against all wars. And that victory cannot be through weapons and destruction. So that is the final message of this video episode. The war that will end all wars will not be fought with guns. So I'll close this video and wish all of us well for peace in future, near future. We'll meet again soon. Until then, Namaskar.